That is Percy Faith and his famous theme from A Summer Place. You've probably heard it in a number of different places. Animal House is one of the movies that I most remember it from, but it's a nice little quiet, sort of fun, summery sort of song. I figure why not? It's still summer. It's summer's just started. The halfway point of summer, to be honest, is not until beginning of August, and that's about a month away. So, what are we doing here tonight? This is Dylan Knows. How the hell are y'all today? Like my new shirt, it's my Jurassic Park shirt. Got it from Loot Crate. This is Dr. Hammond in the Jurassic Park car. There's Ellie and Grant, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. There's sexy Ian Malcolm, and then there's a raptor. So, pretty cool. It's been a interesting week. It was Independence Day week. Normally, I do a Independence Day show for Dylan Knows on Independence Day. I've done it 2 years in a row. I wasn't feeling it this year. Plus, there was so much stuff that came out comic book wise on July 4th that was important that I wanted to get into. So I did my comic haul on July 4th. So technically, my other show, I did do a show on July 4th. Next year's going to be interesting because it's on a Thursday. Now, what that means for a lot of different people is it depends on your work environment. For some people, your office might say, you know what? We're going to be off on the 4th of July on Thursday anyway. There's really no reason for us to come in on Friday because why should we have everything shut off on Thursday, air conditioning, power, whatever, and then come in, set the air conditioner up, get the power running, work, and then you're off for the weekend. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So a lot of companies will say, go ahead and take that day and you'll get a 4-day weekend. That's what I'm hoping for. Is it going to happen? Yeah, find out in a year. We'll find out. But do I think it's going to happen? Again, it's a 50-50 shot. There has been a precedent set that my company has done it before. I've been there for 11 years, so we have done it before when that situation arose. So I don't know at this point. So, how the hell are you guys? Looks like you're doing good. So I hope you all had a enjoyable 4th of July. Again, it was quite a weird one. For those who didn't take the week off, you worked 2 days, you had off on Wednesday, hump day, and then you worked 2 more days. So it sort of felt a little disjointed, I guess. And now here we are Saturday night at 9:23 p.m. It's July 7th. Tomorrow is Sunday, and then once you're done that, 24 hours from now, you'll be thinking, shoot, I got to go to work tomorrow. So make that 24 hours a good one. I hope to. Anyway, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, we got some interesting stuff going on. A few weeks ago, I introduced a new segment called This Week in Movies, where I detail movies that are having anniversaries, movies that came out this week that are popular and they've been out, like an anniversary, like this movie came out 32 years ago or 27 years ago or 25 years ago, whatever, and talk a little bit about them. We're going to do that one again. I'm starting another new segment on the show because I figure the segments might be interesting. This one might not be as often, because it's very suggestive. Not in that kind of way, pervs. It could be, but it's not. It's going to be called In Dreams, and we're going to be discussing some of the dreams I had. Because a lot of times you don't remember your dreams, but this week I had 3 distinctive days where I had interesting dreams that I still remember. I mean, nothing really exciting, but just kind of weird, and it kind of gives you a chance to think about, where things are coming from. We've got stupid people. We've got NBA insanity. We've got me going on a rant about comic book weddings. Some bad news. Steve Ditko passed away, one of the co-creators of Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Blue Beetle, Squirrel Girl, The Question, Creeper. He did a whole bunch of stuff. He passed away this week, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And some interesting karma popped up, and a lot about Pokemon Go, because today, or actually it should be yesterday, was the Pokemon Go 2-year anniversary. It's the telephone game that I've talked about multiple times. When it first came out 2 years ago, it was hugely successful, and it kept going, was successful for a really long time, and then it started to fade out a little bit, and then they introduced Gen 2, and it got a little bit more exciting, and then it faded out again, and then they introduced Gen 3 and some other stuff, and they've been doing a pretty good job of trying to keep people involved. So in celebration of the 2-year anniversary of Pokemon Go, this weekend is basically Pokemon weekend for us in America, and I'll explain what I mean about that. Next week's is interesting, but we'll talk about that too, and some interesting stuff happening in the world of Pokemon today and tomorrow on this side. And yeah, so I think that's a lot of interesting things. Hopefully, we'll get this done in a reasonable amount of time, and we got some interesting things coming up. So, without further ado, what should we start off with this week? My July 4th felt a little empty this year. I suppose is a good place to start, better than any. The most obvious reason, and again, I'm not a supporter of the false president, which is what I'm going to call him. That's why I'm going to call him that. I do not agree with probably 99% of the things that he's doing. Maybe not even that, maybe 100%. And I just feel that the United States is in a very, very dangerous, precarious, and awful state. Now, to be fair, it's not really affecting me all that much since I am white, but just the stuff I've been seeing and hearing and stuff like that is affecting other Americans, and it's unacceptable. The fact is also our country, no matter what you believe, our rules to our country that we need to follow were put in a little paper called the Constitution, and the President of the United States and Congress are supposed to uphold the Constitution. Guess what? Day one, they haven't been doing it, and half of the Constitution, half of the Congress has not been living up to their deals. So we'll see what happens. It's not looking very good. I'm suffering multiple bouts of depression and anxiety, much as everybody else is. Again, not to make light of people who have those those types of diseases. I just am feeling very anxious about a lot of different things and depressed about a lot of things. So, and throw in the fact that it was in the middle of a week and I worked 2 days and then had off and then worked 2 more days. It just didn't seem like a day off, and it was bloody hot because I hate the heat. I hate the summer. Everybody knows that. Today was really, really nice here in the mid-Atlantic. We had highs of about 79, 78 degrees, beautiful weather, low humidity. So, and it's not just me. A lot of people that I know were suffering sort of the same bout a little bit. The neighborhood not decorated up as much as usual. Not a lot of flags, not a lot of red, white, and blue out. I didn't put my flags out this year just because, I mean, it's almost like, why bother? It's not a long weekend or anything like that. It's one day, so why do that and then take it away? Also, I got a inflatable for my birthday that is a star in red, white, and blue that I could have put up, but I didn't. Hopefully next year maybe I'll be a different story, because if I get the long weekend, I'll be like, okay, I can do it for the long weekend. I'll be fine with that. Doing it from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday would be great, and we'll take things down. And maybe at that point the world will be a lot better. The United States will be in a lot better place. We'll see. I'm not holding up much hope. I'm a doubting Thomas, and just anxiety, depression. And the funny thing is, I was looking back at my Independence Day stuff from last year. Last year's episode was called In Depression Day, so it was sort of similar to what I'm going through now. So, and I think that's what it had to be. We had a lot of fireworks. People always like to blow shit up. My town doesn't have a 4th of July parade because we are still one of the only cities in Baltimore, or rather Maryland, that has its own festival for the city, and that's in September. And so all the money for parades and fireworks, stuff like that, goes to this festival in September. So, and that's a little bit more fun because you're celebrating the community you live in, and I've lived in now for geez, July 3rd, it was 14 years. So I lived in this house for 14 years. So I am a part of this community. So I will feel more pride and more happiness in the September 11th weekend, which is when we will have our Reisterstown Festival. So do I hope it gets better? Yes, I do hope it gets better. I am a huge holiday fan, and 4th of July has always been more of a family-oriented one, where I go to my uncle's house and just hang out with my cousins and my uncles and my aunts. And basically, now that we're all old, we just sit around and talk. We used to play badminton, and we used to do fireworks and stuff like that. Now it's just kind of a boring, not boring because they're getting to know, you're getting to talk to, relatives that you haven't talked to in a while. And it felt good to see them, because I hadn't seen them since last Labor Day, when we were up for my stepbrother's wedding in Rhode Island. That was the last time I saw them, because they didn't do a Christmas because my aunt, Mary Beth, had to have knee surgery, so she didn't want to entertain. And then they had some other get-together around Easter, which we already had plans for Easter. So this was the best one to do. So it was fun. But my kids are the only grandkids really that come to these events. There is one other grandchild that's around their age, but she lives in Michigan, and she hardly is ever in town on 4th of July. So my kids were kind of bored out of their minds. That I felt bad about that too. And yeah, there was a parade in Towson that we could have gone to. But again, I worked 2 days. I was tired. I was hot. I was anxious. I was depressed. And I didn't really feel like doing anything. So I stayed home and stayed in the air conditioning and drank coffee and looked on my social media feed, did stuff like that. Then we went to my cousin's house, my uncle's house. So that was it. Just it didn't have the 4th of July quality that I'm used to, and hopefully things will change up on that one. So we'll see. There is a Alien TV show in the works, the movie Alien. Apparently the movies haven't been doing as well, so they said, let's conquer the next medium and let's do a TV show, because, hey, why not? Everybody else is doing one. Could it be good? Yeah, I suppose so. To be something different to see, you probably have to do it on a Netflix or a Hulu or an Amazon, because you really can't get away with it on network TV, to be honest. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on that one as well. Let's see. That's a big one. That's a big one. That's a big one. I'll just fix up some of the other ones here. NBA insanity. Now, I'm not a big NBA fan. Never really was. Baltimore hasn't had a team since before I was born. And basketball just really doesn't interest me, to be honest. College is okay a little bit. I watched the NCAA tournament, but to be honest, I really don't care about the NBA. But it just seemed that, All Out insanity broke last week. LeBron James, who's rightfully considered to be the greatest player right now in the NBA, left the Cleveland Cavaliers to join the LA Lakers. And as soon as he did that, all hell broke loose. 3 or 4 more players decided they were going to go to the Lakers. And then a couple other really good players decided they were going to go to Golden State, which is the creme de la creme right now. A couple said they were going to stay in Oklahoma City. The Denver Nuggets are building a strong team. So the Western Division of the NBA is so strong, and the Eastern Division, now that LeBron's out there, really doesn't have a lot of people that can stand up to them. So it's looking more and more like it's a lopsided NBA. But we'll see what happens. You never know. With draft picks, you don't know who's going to take and who isn't. You might have found the next LeBron James, and you might have been drafted by someone in the East. You don't know that. So we'll see what happens. But in the end, it just seems like it's just day after day, just weird stuff. People saying we're going to move, we're going to come here, we're going to play here, we're going to go play here. Literally, as soon as LeBron joined the Lakers, like 20 different people said, I want to go to the Lakers. Obviously, you want to go to the Lakers because LeBron's on the team and thinks he's going to take you to the championship. So, then Golden State now has 5 potential Hall of Fame All-Stars as their front 5. So that's an interesting problem to have. So good on them. Talking about some stupid people. Some people believe that Satan placed dinosaur fossils to test the Christians. So people are saying that in order to test the Christians, belief that dinosaurs were wiped out by, that they weren't wiped out by God and the big flood, that science and all that stuff, there was no, there was no Garden of Eden and no first people at the beginning of time, stuff like that, which is all pledged in the Bible. So when scientists are trying to prove to religious people that their religion is not exactly right, they point out to fossils and evolution and stuff like that, and so they try to defend themselves. So people automatically assume, well, that's what Satan's trying to do. They're trying to break you from your religious beliefs. So they did that. So that's kind of an interesting thing on that. And talking religion lost me my one viewer, so sorry about that. I want to talk about other stupid people also. Maybe you're one of those people who believe that. I don't know. Where's the other stupid people? Oh, yeah. Fireworks were set off at a Walmart. But here's the interesting, funny thing about that. That in itself is stupid. It's also considered probably arson because you're lighting shit on fire and it's catching fire in the store. But what's funny is they have it on video. If you watch the video, it starts off with a guy walking down the aisle with his cart just nonchalantly, and all of a sudden the fireworks start going off. And the guy just doesn't even pay much attention. He like looks behind and they just keeps walking, not running, not panicking, or whatever. There are people walking past it like it's no big deal. And then you get a few of the people who start panicking. There's like 4 or 5 people start running and getting out of the way. And then while you see those people, there's other people just like walking down nonchalantly down the aisle. It's just, it's fireworks going off in an enclosed space that could catch fire to the products around you. The people who are running were smart. The ones who are just walking around nonchalant, like, I'm not worried about this, they're the ones that you got to watch out for. And it's just one of the funniest videos in the world. So if you can find the fireworks video, that is actually really, really funny just to see these people doing what they're doing. You know, just going about their day as fireworks are going off around them, loud explosions and fire and stuff like that. Like, this is no big deal. Where's the other one I was trying to find here? You probably heard this one. A couple, I guess they were strung out on bath sauces from what I heard, started shooting at fireflies with their guns, thinking they were lasers from aliens trying to suck out their brains. Let that permeate a little bit. Fireflies. Lightning bugs, whatever you want to call them, whatever your area, whatever you want to call it, from whatever part of the country you are. They're the little bugs that have incandescent light. That, I don't know if incandescent is the right word, but that their butts light up basically. And on a dark night, you go out there. A fun thing we used to do when we were kids was we used to try to catch as many of them we could in a jar, and have them in there, and they would be your own light source as long as you made sure you put holes in there so they could breathe. And then, other times, like right now, if we looked out my back door right now, there is a grassy, foresty type of area in my backyard that is blocking the light congestion from 795, which was, the end of 795, which is a big highway. So we have a big black space at night because there's no lights that you can see because all the trees and bushes and stuff like that are blocking out the lights. So when you go out onto our deck, 2 things occur. One, the frogs are as loud as anything. They're not as loud now. They're louder earlier in summer, and as we get later into summer, they're not as loud. But early in summer, you walk out there, you are surrounded by frog sounds, and it permeates your head. It feels like it's inside your brain. It is so loud. So you get that, and then the other thing you get is it's a pitch black backyard. All of a sudden, these little bursts of light just pop up all over the forest. Those are the fireflies. So think about that. So you have these little fireflies, they're probably about that big, and they light up. And these guys, high on bath salts, I think is what they said, pull out their guns and start trying to shoot at these little itty-bitty things, thinking that they're aliens coming to suck out their brains. Don't do bath salts, kids. Radioactive wild boars are rampaging around a Fukushima nuclear site. That was a few years back when that nuclear plant suffered a meltdown after a tsunami hit, I think, or earthquake slash tsunami. It was an earthquake which caused a tsunami, and it caused almost like a Chernobyl event. So you really can't go in there because it's radioactive. But apparently there are radioactive wild boars which are hanging around in there. So that's pretty interesting. Sticking with animals, when the pool noodles, the ones that you take to the pool and help kids float, this is like that's about this long, and you can bend them and they keep you afloat, and you can whack them in the water and stuff like that. Well, some people now have discovered that there are snakes that are hiding in them. So you have to be careful if you keep them outside, because the majority of times if you have some of these, they're going to get wet and you're not going to want to bring them inside. So you leave them out on your deck or your back porch or your basement deck or your basement patio, or just leave them out somewhere where, let them out to dry because they're already wet. And if you live near, like we do, forest, stuff like that, snakes might decide, hey, let's go in here and crawl inside. We'll be protected from getting attacked by birds and stuff. So they go in there, and then the next day you say, okay, let's go swimming, and you pick it up and the snake's still inside. They might pop out and scare that living daylights out of you. Or if you're unlucky enough, they might be poisonous. So just watch out for those snakes in your pool noodles. Get these mother effing snakes out of these mother effing pool noodles. Speaking of snakes, I just like to say every once in a while I haven't seen the movie, but I like to watch like sci-fi used to do these bad sci-fi movies almost like seems like every Saturday. And we would that's how our group of Snarks Alex got together, was we watched these really crappy bad B movies. But they haven't done them in a while. So I've been reading you periodic titles that I've been finding online about actual movies that are out. I think I did one last week, which I can't remember what it was called. But there was one I think I did last week or 2 weeks ago or something like that. So it was kind of interesting. This one is called Snake Outta Compton. Now, the Straight Outta Compton movie was popular, what was that, 2 years ago, about the rise of NWA. And that summer, because it was so popular, you were straight out of everything, straight out of Baltimore, straight out of Reisterstown, straight out of Hamden, straight out of Chicago, whatever. You would have those type of things, straight out of Hogwarts, straight out of Gotham, stuff like that. There was this period of time for about a month where it was straight out of everything. So apparently the creators of these B movies that are still making them, they're just not being aired anywhere that we can see, maybe Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, that type of stuff, but not on Sci-Fi anymore. They decided to create one called Snake Outta Compton. And again, I think you can only imagine what it could be. What it could be about. So that's good on that. All right, so let's see. What should we talk about next? Not going to talk about this one. I may as well. I went to Walmart the other day to get the Walmart comics I told you about. The new issues of that should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And while I was there, I also like to take a look around to see if they have anything new in the grocery section, because they get a lot of stuff that my regular grocery store doesn't. Particularly when it comes to like Pop-Tarts. I eat Pop-Tarts every day at work from Monday through Friday, not during the weekend so much, but Monday through Friday I do. It's my break time treat that I have. Cherry's still my favorite, but I try different ones. Last year, they released 2 peanut butter ones. One was a chocolate peanut butter Pop-Tart. One was just straight up peanut butter Pop-Tart. Obviously, the chocolate peanut butter one was much better and than the regular Pop-Tart one, because I tried them both, and I like the chocolate peanut butter one a lot. Well, they're back in stores now, so I need to pick up some of those. But at Walmart also, they had that, but they also had these ones called Pop-Tart Twists or something like that. And there's 2 kinds. There is strawberry and cheesecake flavored Pop-Tart. So it's one Pop-Tart, you get strawberry on one side and cheesecake flavor on the other, and you eat it together and it tastes like a strawberry cheesecake. And then you also have fudge brownie and I want to say birthday cake flavored also mixed together. That's another one that I got also, so I will try that once I finish up these cheesecake strawberry ones, which they were okay. They seem to be a little dry to me, but they were okay. I think I won't get those again. I'll try the brownie like birthday cake one soon, and then I'm definitely probably go back to the peanut butter chocolate because they were good. So I'd like to bring up some drinks and not food and at some times and stuff like that. So we'll do that. No, these are 3 big stories. Let me hit some of the smaller ones. Every July 1st, Barry Bonds, former baseball player, hasn't played since what, 2005 maybe? 2007, 2009, something like that. It's been a while since he's played. Well, apparently, in probably one of the absolute worst contracts of all time, I think it's the New York Mets. The New York Mets have to pay Barry Bonds, who no longer plays for them, no longer plays for anybody, has to pay him $1.19 million every July 1st. From 2011 to 2035. That's the contract he signed, was guaranteed this money, and that's the time frame, I guess, that they gave it to so they could keep their cap space down. So this is all guaranteed money they said was going to be guaranteed to him, and they're doing it an annual sum of $1.19 million. Now, the Mets, when they brought this up, the Mets were the main focus of this, but the Baltimore Orioles, my team, and one other team also have to pay a smaller amount to him, maybe not for the same time frame, but in a similar way due to when we picked him up for a coffee. We had him for like half a season or something like that. We were willing to take on some of that contract, so we have to pay him a small stipend, not anywhere close to $1.19 million a year, but we still have to pay him something for a less time frame also. That just seems like a bizarre contract. And the fact that he hasn't played, I said it seems like 13, 14 years, and he's still getting paid by a baseball team. $1.19 million. How would you like to get that? Once a year, you're guaranteed a $1.19 million paycheck. And then whatever else the Orioles and this other team are paying as well. I'd kind of like that, wouldn't you? It's almost like winning the lottery. You're getting, and you take the month, and you take the yearly. It's a yearly instead of a monthly thing. It's a yearly one. I don't know. So that was interesting. Funko cereal. Funko Pops are one of my favorite new toy things that are out now. They are now entering the cereal field. I don't know where you can get the cereal, but I just saw the ad for it. There's like a Freddy Krueger Funko cereal and some other ones as well. So I don't know much about it just from what I read in the article. So that should be an interesting take on something. So try that out in the end. Summertime. I talked about the pool noodles. Well, another fun thing people like to do, not just at the pool, but also at, say, the beach and the ocean or whatever, is they like to sit on floaties and just, catch the sun or just, float out in the water, usually in the pool because you don't want to get floated out the ocean, out to sea. There is now presently, there's 2 right now. The big one now is everybody wants the unicorn one that you can jump on, and it's a unicorn floaty, and it looks like a unicorn. You can jump on it and float on water like you're riding a unicorn on the water. But the new one, the one that I want to discuss, is there's a coffin water float, which you can either lay on, or you can open the lid like a coffin and lay in it, and I guess leave the door open, or you can close the lid on you and you can float in that as well. Now, I'm not too sure about the floaty coffin thing. Putting the lid down seems like a really bad idea, because then you have no sense of where you are or what's going on or who's around you or what's happening like that. And maybe that's what you want. I don't know. Having it open again, might be kind of cool because you're actually laying like in a coffin style thing. But then you got this thing off to the side here that could any minute could go on top of you, or people would try to make it go on top of you. And then lying on top of it, it'd just be like it's a normal floaty thing. So why get that? Why get the coffin one if you're not going to use the coffin? It seems like a kind of a weird type of thing. Who knows? Guy finds an armored Mexican cartel truck abandoned in a junkyard. You know, when you see documentaries or movies about drug cartels, they tend to have these hugely shielded trucks so that, you know, no one can shoot and try to kill them and steal their stuff. This guy found an abandoned one in a junkyard. Now, I don't know if you really want to grab it and take it, even though it's abandoned, because maybe they killed somebody in that and the police are looking for it. And if you're driving it around town and they discover the license plate or the description of it and they come hunt you down, you could be in a lot of trouble. There could still be blood stains in there. There could be, maybe they abandoned it as a place to hide their drugs. And if they discover that you took it, they could come and hunt you down and kill you. So I don't know if it's a good idea to do anything with it. Not that this person did, but the fact that he discovered this in a junkyard is kind of fascinating, to be honest. And it's kind of neat, too. So, interesting on that. A mysterious number was discovered printed on a blueberry. Now, does that prove that maybe the government or someone is creating specialized blueberries that could control you or kill you or keep tabs of you? I don't know. It just seems rather odd to be grabbing a blueberry and see the number 6 or the number 8 or the number 7 on it, or the number 17 or the number 69 on it, and be like, what in the world is that? And it just seems kind of odd that somebody actually discovered something like that. All right, that's enough little notes here and there. Let's break into, because I'm moving right along. I mean, I was like, man, if I just kept doing these and then do my big stuff, I'd be done like in an hour. So we'll try to slow it down a little bit. Not that anybody's watching live, though. Again, that could just because it's Saturday night and other people are probably doing stuff. But, you know, that's cool. I'm all right. So, should we talk about Pokemon? Let's talk about Pokemon. Because one of the other stories I want to talk about first, before we get into the big stuff about Pokemon, Eevee is one of the Pokemon that came in Gen 1. And Eevees are really cool because they're these cute little doggy, kitty-looking things. But what's great about them is they can evolve into, as of now, in Pokemon Go, 5 forms. 5 different forms. Well, yeah, 6 technically if you went to the regular Eevee. The next generation coming up in Pokemon Go, it can evolve to 2 more. And then like 2 more gens down the road, it evolves to 2 more. Now there's about 16 or 18 different types of Pokemon out there. Eevee's going to be able to, at some point, turn into all of them. They just haven't released the other ones yet. They've just released a few of them right now. So Eevee is one of those really, really cool and interesting Pokemon because when you catch it and you're able to evolve it, it'll evolve into a different looking creature depending on which one. So you have the water Eevee called Vaporeon, the electric one called Jolteon, and so on and so forth. Umbreon is the dark one, and my mind is just a blank right now. But Eevee is one of the more famous characters in Pokemon Go. In fact, it's going to get its own Nintendo Switch game coming this fall, along with Pikachu. So the fact that they're doing that, that's pretty cool. And also, it also could be a precursor that they might be releasing some more variations of Eevee. Anyway, over in Japan, which is, of course, the headquarters of Pokemon, they have created Eevee Soda. There's 4 different kinds. with the different EV evolutions on it. So that's kind of cool, and I hope they would make their way over here. I wore my EV boxers today for our Pokemon Go events. And my son has a bunch of Pokemon EV socks of the different evolutions, so it's pretty cool. So let's talk Pokemon Go. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the show, Pokemon Go is, as of yesterday, July 6th, is 2 years old. So the game is now 2 years old, and it's still fairly successful, despite the fact that everyone seems to be poo-pooing it. But I alone am a member of a raiding team here in Reisterstown, and we have a lot of people who are still involved and still excited about it. A few people at my work are excited about it and still do it. Dawn's in 2 of them. She's in us, or one here, and she's also one in Hunt Valley where she works. And they're also fellow Snark Alex of ours, are Pokemon Go players, and other friends of mine as well are Pokemon Go players too. So it's still kind of a popular game, and it is. It's a fun game, and I truly believe everyone should do it because, as I mentioned a few weeks ago when I discussed Pokemon Go in detail, it's a game primarily that the company Niantic that created it wants 2 things to do. It wants you to get outside and get exercise, and it wants you to meet new people. That's the gist of the game. That's how you're going to succeed in the game, is if you meet new people and you get more exercise. So it's not a type of game. You can play it from your house or car. Sorry, I got this. Nobody's watching, so it doesn't matter. It's probably going to stick this way. I'll probably have to clip it later. So in order to advance and get better, you need to do at least some walking, and you have to get to know other people and raid with them and stuff like that. Now, in celebration, Pokemon Go during the summer, they throw all kinds of events, worldwide events. Last weekend, they had something called a Safari Zone over in Germany, which basically means that in the world of Pokemon Go, there are a number of Pokemon that you can only get in certain areas of the world. Like here in America, you can only get the Pokemon Tauros. You can't get Tauros over in Australia or England or China or Japan or Russia or India or Africa or South America, stuff like that. You can only get it here in America, North America. And I think Canada also, you can get it too. But then, Europe has Mr. Mime, which we can't get here, but they get over there plenty of. Australia has Kangaskhan, and there are some other ones. Kursala is another one, and there's a few other ones I can't think of the top of my head, but there's a lot of ones you can only get by going to these places, or at least having a friend who lives in these places who can maybe catch it for you on your account, because they can get into your account and pick and get the stuff for you. Some people have done that before too. And then with trading, you might be able to trade for some of these to fill out your Pokebox. So the Safari Zone is when there's a specific area, not a big area, in this town in Germany where they're releasing all of the Pokemon at one time. So all the regionals are here at the Safari Zone, and ones that are very, very rare, they pop up more often, and so on and so forth. Now, they've never done a Safari Zone in the United States. Are they ever? Who knows? I don't know. But because of that, Niantic decided what they want to do is they wanted to kind of make it so that for those who can't go to the Safari Zone, they want you to feel like you're part of the group. So they create these types of plans that you have to do, things you have to do as a country in order to unlock special things. So the people in Germany would have to catch a certain amount of Pokemon. If they do that, they unlock, I forget what they unlock, like XP or something like that, which is points you want to get, experience points. And then if Europe gets 5,000, but does like 5,000 research tasks, you unlock, 1 hour eggs. And if America does, 5 million research tasks, you open up double stardust, stuff like that. So during this time frame, you go out and you catch as many Pokemon as you can, and you do as many research projects as you can, and hope that everybody else in the world is doing that. And then once they hit the magic number, they will release the special deals for you for the week after, it was this week. So we hit everything. So this week it was 1 hour eggs and a double XP for raids and Stardust and catching things and stuff like that. So it was really good. And you piggyback that onto, because everyone succeeded in doing their stuff, you unlock what we call a legendary. In this case, it was Articuno, who's been out before, but it's been about a year since he's been out, so it's good to have him back. And today was Articuno Day. So basically, they said for this day, for a 3-hour period, every gym where raids take place will be a Articuno raid, and you have 3 hours to hit as many gyms as you can, fight Articuno, and if you beat them, you get the double XP and the double Stardust and stuff like that, and it helps raise you to leveling up because you want to hit the level 40 is what you're aiming for. I leveled up to level 37 today, so that was impressive for me. Dawn is very close to hitting the magic level 40. That helped doing what she did today. So today, as I said, was Articuno Day, where all over the world for a 3-hour period at different times, because it's they want it to be like the same time, but in all because of time zones. Like, so when it was afternoon over in Japan, it was like late yesterday. They were able to have their Articuno Day, and then you move to Europe where it was overnight for us, and they did their thing, and then we did ours. So from 2 to 5 today, Eastern Standard Time, and every gym was an Articuno raid. So we created what we call a raid train. So we had about, I think to start off, we had about 37 people. And we hit every single gym in Reisterstown and Owings Mills that we could. Now, there's a few we couldn't get to in the time span we had, but in the end, we ended up hitting 17 gyms and doing 17 Articuno raids. And there was a possibility you could have gotten what we call a shiny, which is a different colorization of Articuno. I got 2, Dawn got 4, my son got 1, my daughter got 1. So everybody in our family got at least 1 shiny. But of the 17 raids, I caught 10 of the Articunos, 2 of which were these shinies. Dawn started off a little rough. She went 0 for 2, and then she went 15-0. So she did a lot better than I did. And she caught 4 shinies on top of that. So, and it varies, but we were with the same raid group, and we hit all the different, we were driving from one raid to the next, and we had people coordinating things, said, okay, everyone go in now, and then you had gone as a separate group, and this is the code you need to get into your separate group and stuff like that. So we did all that, and we got tons of XP and tons of Articunos and all kinds of fun stuff. So it was a fun time had by all. And that's just day 1 of this weekend. Tomorrow is July's Community Day. Now, I've been talking about Community Day since they started back in January. So to refresh your memory, if you haven't seen these, Community Day is one day during a month. They release one Pokemon. It's not really a special one, but it's one that they release. Spawns more often in a 3-hour period. Again, a 2 to 5 time frame tomorrow. In this case, it's Squirtle, which is a turtle-looking thing. He's going to spawn more often, and what you want to do is the more you catch, the more coins you get, and the more chance you can candies, I should say. And then if you get enough, you can evolve them into Squirtle has 2 other evolutions. Wartortle and Blastoise. And Blastoise is the final evolution for Squirtle. And in this event, for this period from 2 to 5, if you get enough candies to evolve a Blastoise, this Blastoise will have a special move set, a fighting set that you can use in gyms that you can only get in this 3-hour period. You cannot get it any other time. If you evolve a Squirtle after this period to a Blastoise, it will not have this move. If you catch one, it will not have this move. It's only in this time frame from 2 to 5. So you want to catch as many Squirtles as you can to get as many Squirtle candies as you can, and then evolve as many Blastoise or Wartortles and Blastoises that you can to get the special move. And then on top of that, they also have shiny Squirtles, and if you evolve the shiny Squirtle, you get shiny Wartortle and shiny Blastoise. So you're going to want to do that as well. And again, there'll be raids, and then the eggs that you use to hatch other Pokemon, the distance to walk is going to be a lot less now. So we're probably going to be going down to Baltimore's Harbor tomorrow, where there's going to be a ton of people, because we went down there in February for the Dratini raid, and there was a ton of people for Dratini. So Squirtle is a water type Pokemon, so he's going to spawn more around water anyway. So it'll be a nice day tomorrow to be down at the harbor. There's going to be a lot of people, obviously, not just doing Pokemon Go hunting, but just out in general. So we're going to do that from 2 to 5, and hopefully we'll get enough to do that. So tomorrow is Community Day in Pokemon Go. Now, next weekend is in Chicago. They're having Pokemon Go Fest, where in their park out there, it's not really a safari zone, but they're going to have all kinds of events and stuff like that, and the room to release the next Mythical next weekend, and then that'll be for the people in Chicago. They'll get the first crack at it, and then after they get their first crack at it, we'll be able to get our first crack at it in the weeks that follow, and we'll have to do a series of tasks to get it. We did that for the legendary Mew, or rather the mythical Mew, last couple months ago. So it's been a few months since we did the Mew one, so now a new one is going to be coming up, and the character is called Celebi. So Chicago is going to have this Pokemon Go Fest where Celebi is going to be released for the first time, and they're going to get a chance to catch it. Now again, much like Safari Zone, there's another event where they're going to try to get the whole world involved. So if the whole world catches 5,000 Pokemon here or 5,000 there, we'll unlock more things, and a possible another like encounter with a different legendary, like we did today with Articuno. So we're going to have to go out and do that next weekend as well. So we've got that going on for Pokemon. And then in August, there is another event. This one's overseas, where they're going to do something. I think this one's in Japan, actually, where they're going to do a similar thing where we're going to have to do tasks and unlock other things. So it's going to keep you busy, and it's a lot of fun. So that's what's going on with the world of Pokemon Go. So it's 2 years old, and congratulations on that. I'm going to go off a little bit now. Last week and for weeks before then, I've been pushing the Batman Catwoman wedding. Tom King has been writing the Batman comic now for about 2 years, and I've loved every minute of it. I've read every single Batman comic he's written, 50 of them plus 2 annuals, and then some specials here and there. And I've loved all of them. Well, he's been setting up that Batman and Catwoman are going to get married, and it was going to happen in issue 50. Now this is coming on the heels, and as I said, these are going to be some spoilers, so if you haven't read it yet, you might want to turn off this segment of it or fast forward through it, or if not, it's okay. But Marvel is also doing something similar with Colossus and Kitty Pryde, and I thought that was a good coupling also. So I got the wedding special that they released last month for Colossus and Kitty Pryde. And then when the issue of X-Men Blue that came out where they were actually going to get married, or X-Men Gold, one of those two ones, before I bought it, I picked it up just to look at it to see, how things went. And sure enough, Kitty Pryde decides not to get married to Colossus. Instead, Rogue and Gambit get married. But I could give a rat's ass about Rogue and Gambit. I wanted to see Colossus and Kitty Pryde get together because I've always liked them as a couple. And now Kitty Pryde left Colossus at the altar. I was like, okay, fine. So then Batman Catwoman number 50 comes out, or Batman number 50 comes out. And it's another wedding issue. And since it's the 50th issue, Tom King was able to get a lot of his buddies who were Batman artists or wanted to draw Batman, and he crafted a story where there would be splash pages that these different artists would draw, which would celebrate the relationship between Catwoman and Batman. And then the main story would be written drawn by Mikhail Janin, who was beautiful artwork, would be the wedding. The comic was written under the guise that both Batman wrote a letter to Catwoman and Catwoman wrote a letter to Batman. Spoiler alert. Catwoman leaves Batman at the altar. There isn't really an altar. They're going to get married on the rooftop of a building. And the note she left wasn't like a farewell to arms. She said, love always, stuff like that. So she still loves him. But Joker put this bug in her ear, and then her friend Holly put this bug in her ear that if Batman becomes happy, he's not going to become Batman, and he's not going to become the Dark Avenger that Gotham needs to stop the bad guys, and he's not going to really want to worry about cleaning up Gotham anymore. And so Catwoman realized that that's what he's been placed, I guess, on this planet for, is to do all that. And so she said, I can't break that up. So she leaves him, and that leads into her first issue of her comic, where she's now at some sort of border town now and dealing with a group of Catwomen who are using her disguise to perform crimes. So it looks like Catwoman is the one who's perpetrating them so that she'll get blamed for these crimes. Now, the Holly thing, and actually I think the Joker kind of thing also was sort of connected to this, leads to the twist at the end where Bane, who was the character that broke Batman in the movie and back in the 1990s, and Batman had an encounter with him in 2 story arcs that Tom King wrote, and he beat him both times. He wanted to break Batman, and so he was able to convince Holly to make this comment to Catwoman and realize that, you know, he loved Catwoman so much that if Catwoman left him, it would break him, and it basically did. So basically he can declare victory. Now, Tom King has also written that this is a 100-issue love story between Batman and Catwoman. So we still have 50 issues to go. So is it possible that this could come back around again and they could actually get married for real? Here's hoping, because here's where my rant is going to come in hand. I'm 45 years old. I'm married. I have kids. I've been a comic collector since the 1980s, 40-some years. I mean, 30-some years, excuse me, 30-some years. I have a ton of comic books. My wife can attest to this. And she wants me to get rid of a lot of them, but I just can't, because I'm a collector. I got to hold on to them. Some of them are also from my dad. My dad got me started on my collection. I understand all this. I understand why you're not wanting to have Batman get married, or why maybe you don't want Colossus and Kitty Pryde to get married. It's the same reason why they broke up Spider-Man's wedding back beginning of the century. Or why Brian Michael Bendis, who I honestly still think is single-handedly destroying Superman, and I hated the Man of Steel storyline, he ends up, because he didn't want to write a married Superman. He wanted to write a single type of Superman, but didn't want to get rid of the family aspect that has been such a big part of Superman's life for a long time, Bendis. He decides that he's going to get them out of the picture by having Jor-El, who is Superman's father, who we discovered in Action Comics written by Dan Jurgens, that is still alive. And Jor-El has come and says he wants to take John, who is Lois and Clark's son, who has Superman's powers, and take him on a tour of the universe and to train him up onto how to be a better Superman than Clark is. And of course, Lois, being his mom, is not going to let her son, who's only like 10 years old, travel a galaxy with someone who is his grandfather, but might not have the best intentions. So she said, if you want him, you're going to take me also. So Lois and John are now taking a tour of universes and training and stuff like that with Jor-El, while Superman is by himself on Earth. I know you're trying to get younger people involved in buying comics. I get it. I do. Because it's only going to be so much time that people my age and older who have been collecting comics, in some cases since the 1960s, in my case since the 1980s, and we're the ones who are basically pushing the market, as it were, and we're the ones that do, because when I walk into my comic book store, all the people I see are about my age or older. Maybe a few younger than me, but there's not really a lot of young people. despite the fact that the movies are doing so well, and despite the fact that the comics are trying to become more all ages oriented, and despite the fact that they're trying Free Comic Book Day and the Halloween Free Comic Book Day event, and they're pushing all kinds of other things to try to get other kids, having them in libraries so they're getting younger kids involved, and then now the Walmart thing to try to get more kids involved into buying comics to keep it alive as a viable option. In the end, it's people my age that are pushing this and are making the money because we have the disposable income we can use to buy a lot of comics because they're extraordinarily expensive. Now I'm cutting back on a lot of comics, and I'll buy the first issue of Superman and probably the first issue of Bendis' Action just to see if it gets any better, but I'm not holding my breath that I'm going to keep up with that, so I'm not going to probably buy that much longer. So in order to appease, or appeal I should say, to the younger generation, because let's face facts, and it's not their fault, I understand this too, but younger people nowadays, they don't want to get married. And I'll give you a few examples of that. There's some kids, not kids, there's some people I work with, they're in their 20s, early to mid 20s. My cousin is just turning 30. I have friends who are around the same age as I am who are together, but they have no intention of having kids. Some are getting married. Some are just living out their lives as boyfriend, girlfriend because it's a lot easier. Some just are saying flat out, I don't want to have kids. Kids are extraordinarily expensive. Yes, they are. And if you are not able to have a good job to be able to afford having kids, don't have kids. I get it. So you're trying to appeal to these people, the younger people who can stay with comics longer once us old fogies decide we're not going to buy comics anymore or we're going to get out of them or whatever. They want to keep this younger generation, keep it viable. So they are appealing to them by not having married couples. Now, yes, Rogue and Gambit are a oddity that they're a married couple now, and they're going to get their own series called Mr. and Mrs. X. But let's face facts. They're old. Their powers, particularly Rogue's, would not really be conducive to having children. So they are taking the fact that there are people my age and maybe a little younger who just are not going to have kids, and they're going to do something similar with this. Now, Colossus and Kitty, you could probably see, because they're young enough, see them having kids. But because you don't want them together, you don't want to write a married couple like that. You broke them up. Now, Batman, Catwoman, I had a specific idea, and I thought this is what Tom King was going to go for, but apparently I was wrong. Or maybe I'm not. Maybe he'll hit it in issue 50, or rather issue 100. But my thought was, why don't you just let Batman and Catwoman get married? Because what they've been saying in the book is it's not Bruce Wayne marrying Selina Kyle. It's Batman marrying Catwoman. That's why they're doing it on a rooftop. Why they got one of Batman's witness was a drunk lawyer who has no idea what's going on, and Catwoman's was her friend Holly, who we know was later, sent to screw up the wedding. And they had an officiant who, can keep his mouth shut and stuff like that. My thought was, and because Catwoman #1 also came out the same day, my thought was what they were going to do is they were going to keep Batman and Catwoman married, but they weren't technically going to do adventures together or stories together with them being married. They'll go and do their own thing. Catwoman be in her solo book and Batman be in his solo book. They'd be married and they might cross paths every once in a while in their books and stuff like that, but it'd be more of a behind-the-scenes marriage, almost sort of like maybe a long-distance relationship, but not really long distance, because you could always have Catwoman take over a different part of Gotham and live in that part of it, or set up shop in that part of it, and Batman can stay where he is. And then, whenever you wanted to be together or spend some time together, you can meet halfway, or you could spend time at one house or the other, and you wouldn't have to necessarily show that all the time in the comics. Show it that they're still together and they're happy and everything's going good, but then you can leave them to their own devices. That was what I was thinking they were going to do. Because then eventually, once they got to the point where, okay, we're going to retire, we can't do this anymore because we're getting older, we'll let the younger generation take care of it, then they could maybe officially say Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle are married, and then they can move back in together and live out their life that way. They could have kids, whatever you wanted to do, you could do that. You'd have Dick Grayson probably be Batman. Damian would still be probably a viable Robin, or if you wanted to make him the new Nightwing, that type of thing, or whatever, you could do that as well. You know, or you could have, you know, Tim Drake could be Nightwing, and he's, I know, you could figure it out. He didn't do that. But again, he said it's a 100-issue love story between Batman and Catwoman. So maybe down the line, something's going to change or click, and we'll see them back together again. We'll see. Not hold my breath, though. Being a married man and being a comic fan, I wanted to see married couples. I wanted to show progression in a character, because that's the one thing that's happening in comics is things are getting stagnant. They're always going to be the single superhero. They're always going to have issues where they're going to be dating somebody, and eventually, you know, they'll have the loved one will be like, you need to stop what you're doing so we can be together, and they're not going to be able to stop. They'll have a fight, they'll make up, they'll get back together, then that person will be used for bait to get the superhero. They'll break up, and then they'll move on to the next relationship, and it never progresses from there. That was been my one issue with comics, is that they never proceed on with it. Bringing back Hal Jordan and bringing back Barry Allen after you killed them off, and letting the younger generation of Kyle Rayner and Wally West take on the mantles of the superheroes was a great start. But then you decided, let's bring back Barry and let's bring back Hal. And now Kyle and Wally are secondary characters to these two main characters. And the same thing with Green Arrow. You say the same thing also. Connor Hawke was a up-and-comer. He's no longer really in the picture anymore. And I wanted to see a progression. I want to see the heroes get older. I want to see the heroes retire. I want to see the next generation take over and start their own stories and have their own adventures. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So that leads me to the point where these situations are never going to happen. There's never going to be any marriages. There's never going to be any children. Because I would like to see how Batman and Catwoman would have raised a daughter or a son, and how the other people would react to that. Or I would like to see how Superman and Lois raised John to be older, and what happens when he gets older, and situations like that. And how Damian seems to be maturing a little bit more as he gets older, and not being as cocky, and see what he can do. I want to see this next generation. It's not going to happen. And that's upsetting. So what do we got here? We're about an hour in. I'll deal with this story. This is my next big one. I've done some big ones now, so I got that. I got these two themes here. Let's dig up some other smaller stories. So going from that rant to some what the beep are we doing? I'm always a big fan of photos, videos showing UFOs and Bigfoot and ghosts and stuff like that. They're fascinating. They're fun to watch. And in a lot of cases, you're like, this is fake. Or in some cases, you're like, I don't know what that is. Could be real. Or in some cases, like a lot of the stuff you see from the planet Mars that Pathfinder and the other rovers send back, and people automatically say, this looks like a human head. And you look at the rock, and yeah, it's got a similar shape. It's got like a nose and a forehead and sunken eyes and stuff like that. So it must be a statue. And they draw these pictures, and they zoom and enhance and clean up. It's like, yes, look at it. It looks like a human head. When in actuality, it's just a rock, the way that erosion has happened and stuff like that. It's just the way it is. There is a actual physical, mental thing, which is the reason why we look at the clouds and we say, hey, it's a horse here, that's a dog here, that's a kitty. Or you see Jesus' face in a bagel, stuff like that. It's just the way that designs are, your mind looks at the designs and tries to make something out of the design to make it make sense to them, instead of it just being a bunch of just weird, whacked out lines or bizarre, different colored rocks or stuff like that. Now, there are some stuff on Mars that Pathfinder has shown that seems a little, I'm not exactly sure how a completely smooth sphere ball could appear on a planet. Could it happen? Sure, I suppose. But this is literally a completely clean, smooth stone that looks like a cannonball or something like that. I saw that picture before too. That one's a little, that's kind of interesting. Or my favorite is the rock spider, this giant ass spider that was in this cave. It's a rock that has all these little rock things around that looks like legs. Now, how does something like that form if it's a rock? That seems kind of an odd formation, don't you think? But then there are the other ones that are like, oh my God, seriously, people, you see a face in that? Come on, man, really. So flash forward to now. There had been a video that's been making the rounds this week on Facebook and stuff like that, that purports to show a human being shadow, I should say, walking in the clouds. Now you get a video shot of a cloud, looks like a storm is brewing or something like that. And sure enough, where the camera's focused on, of course, they also, when they got the editing, they edited it so they could put a circle around it and say, look at this. It looks like a human, and it appears, and it literally looks like it's a human. It's got a head, arms, legs, a body, literally walking in the clouds. And then it dissipates eventually. So it goes, it's nothing here, and then all of a sudden it pops up, walks, poof, and then it disappears again. It's kind of convincing. Of course, the religious people are saying that it's God taking walks, taking a stroll in the clouds. Others might be saying it's an angel or a giant or whatever taking a walk in the clouds. You got to remember one thing. Despite what you may have seen in cartoons or whatever, clouds are not solid. Clouds are gas, basically. White form clouds that if you flew into it and you jumped out hoping to land and walk on a cloud, ain't going to happen. If you jump out, you're going to go right through the cloud and plummet to your death. You cannot physically walk on clouds. It just doesn't happen. It's science. You can't do it. Don't even try. So you have this video that it's definitely an interesting looking shadow. Could it have been edited in? Absolutely, probably it could have been. Or again, is it one of these things where it just seems to be a shadow of a cloud, or just a specific cloud formation moving its way? Because clouds are constantly moving because the Earth rotates. It just so happens that it looks like a human walking, and then it dissipates. Is it possible? Is it just a cloud? Absolutely, it's possible. It's just a cloud. The interesting thing then is there was also a still photograph that's been making the rounds lately also. It was taken from an airplane of what purports to be another humanoid-looking creature walking on the clouds. And again, it looks fairly distinct. You see a shadow, which shows that it looks like the human walking. And it's from a distance, obviously, because you're in an airplane, you're moving one way and they're moving another. But again, you cannot walk on clouds. It is physically impossible to do that. But what if it is God, Dylan? Well, if it's God, it's God. Maybe he could walk on it. I don't know. It's possible. But the interesting thing is there's these two pieces of evidence that shows something walking in the clouds. Again, could it just be your eyes playing tricks on you? Could it be fakery? Absolutely. It could be all that above. I don't know. But I just thought it was interesting, and I always like these types of videos and what people's reactions are to it. Let's talk a little bit about karma. poachers entered an African wildlife, what is the proper word I'm looking for? Habitat, I should say, where it's against the law to hunt the animals within the habitat. They've got giraffes and squirrels and lions and tigers and stuff like that. And hippos and rhinos and stuff like that. And poachers, they don't give a damn about your rules. They're going to go into the wildlife sanctuary. It's the easiest way to hunt down and kill your prize game. Now, we had an issue this week also of some psycho killing a black giraffe, which is very rare. They did it just for the fun of it, and that's just sickening to me. But here's where karma comes into play. So these poachers were going into, I think they were going to kill a rhino. And I guess this was at night. They tried to sneak in at night so none of the preserve rangers would catch them and throw them into jail, because it's illegal to do that. You're breaking the law. So they were hunting this rhino. And a pack of lions, a pride of lions, I should say, ended up eating them. Now, I don't like when people die, but if you were going in to kill an animal who is trying to be protected because they are endangered, you're doing it under cover of night with a rifle, and you're not going to do anything except say, hey, look what I shot. You kind of deserve what you get. And there's been a lot of karma recently about those types of things. There have been other poachers who, one, I think, shot and killed an elephant, and they did not quite grasp the fact that when you shot the elephant and killed it, it would stop and it would fall down dead, and it fell in your direction and it crushed the guy that shot him. So there's been a lot of karma recently about people who've been poaching animals. So they deserve that, to be honest. Again, I'm not condoning the deaths of people, and I'm not celebrating it. But when you're trying to kill a defenseless creature and the tables get turned on you and you get killed, that's karma, baby. It's karma. Captain America in the MCU, played by Chris Evans, turned 100 years old. His character turned 100 years old on July 4th. Someone took a picture of, I guess, one of the birth certificates from Captain America, and they narrowed it down, and they highlighted his date of birth, and it was July 4th, 1918. So it was July 4th, 2018. So Captain America is 100 years old. So Chris Evans, who played him, he sent out a tweet wishing Captain America a happy birthday. Speaking of 4th of July, a protester climbed the Statue of Liberty to protest the separation of immigrant children from their parents. Good on you. I think that's what it was. Good on you, lady. You got arrested and thrown in jail, and the clown in chief wished you would have jumped instead and died. So he's an asshole, but we already knew that anyway. But good on you for doing, a little bit of civil disobedience to get attention. And on the same day, in Canada, which isn't 4th of July to them it's Wednesday. Their Canada Day is on July 1st. A Greenpeace protester was dangling from a memorial bridge in Vancouver, I think, in Canada, to protest the poaching, I guess the poaching of animals or the killing of animals as well. That's what Greenpeace, I think, does, or something about the environment. So it's good to see some civil disobedience starting to make its way in. Today, I just noticed this also, there was a parade on one of the main highways in Chicago about gun control. And they were literally on the highway with cars, and cars were driving around them at a slow speed so as not to hit them. So, again, good on that. Japan's World Cup team. Now, I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Fans in the stands of a Japanese World Cup game, when the game was over and Japan had won, they cleaned up the stadium. It was spotless. They did their job. They picked up all their trash. They picked up other people's trash other fans who were not Japanese. They picked up their trash. They cleaned the entire stadium before they left. That's very kind of cool, very nice and gracious of them. Fast forward now to this week, Japan loses to Belgium, I believe, in a heartbreaking way in the World Cup. They were up 2-0, and they ended up losing 3-2. They gave up 3 goals very quickly and won at the end of the game, which spiked the game for the Belgians. The Japanese World Cup team, they left their locker room spotless. Every locker cleaned out, every trash thrown away, towels, no water on the floor, the bathroom was clean, towels were hung up or thrown into a hamper, but you would walk in and it was a pristine gym. I kind of want to go to Japan. It seems like a really cool place, and they seem to be very, what's the word I'm thinking? Very kind and very feel like they need to do this because it's the right thing to do. So good on that. What the hell did I write there? Big rig. Took me a second. My handwriting is awful. Corolla, North Carolina is where I go on vacation multiple times. I've gone there before. And my brother-in-law's parents own a house at the very end of Corolla, right before the 4x4 beach. Now, for those who don't know what the 4x4 beach is, you've got all of the Outer Banks. You go through Duck and Corolla and stuff like that. When you get to a certain point in Corolla, the houses end. As I said, my brother-in-law's mother and father own a house like right on the end, and we stayed in the house before. Then you have the 4x4 beach. There are other houses on the other side, but the only way you can get to them is if you cross the beach in a 4x4, a Jeep, truck, whatever. Now, we tried to go across the 4x4 beach before in Jeeps, and we got stuck. And it was proper 4x4 vehicles. We got stuck. It took us a long time to get out of there, but we got out of there. Well, apparently, a big rig, one of these things you see on the highways all the time, big ass trucks that go, they can only go so fast because they're carrying a lot of weight. And so they go the speed limit and maybe below it sometimes. And then if you're stuck behind them, you're stuck behind them. So if you go around and there's just big lanes in front of them, you can jump in and get back to speed. One of these big rigs got stuck on the 4x4 beach. Now, you could maybe see Jeeps and stuff like that getting stuck on the beach because they're 4x4s, but they might not be that strong. These trucks are meant to be able to do this, and they got stuck. Just kind of interesting. Oreo cookie flavored coffee creamer is coming. So they did a good job with the Reese's peanut butter cup one, and I really like that one. And now I'm intrigued to see what the Oreo one is going to taste like. Obviously chocolate and probably the white cream flavor. So it's going to be a mix of like chocolate and white cream. Interesting. So once I see that, I will try to grab it and I'll put it in my coffee, and I'll give you all the heads up to see if it's worth getting it or not. Finally, there's three more little stories here. My wife loves Voltron. I love Voltron too. The original series. We haven't really watched the new series that's on Netflix right now, but Voltron is still fairly popular. They have finally got their first ever Lego set where you can build the lions and then build Voltron also. So that might be an interesting Lego set to pick up eventually, particularly for my wife, because our kids love Legos as well, and that's an interesting Lego set to have in your hands. Our planet could be fueled by star power by 2030. Now, I had to look at this article a few times because isn't star fuel called solar energy because our sun is a star? and people who have solar power are sucking in the energy from the sun. So aren't we already getting our power? Not everybody, but isn't a bunch of people getting fueled by a star? Now, I don't think that's what they meant. I think what they meant is there's something called a Dyson sphere, which is something was introduced in Star Trek. It might actually have been based on a fact, because I've heard that people have talked about a similar thing as well in real life. It's a giant creation that would be bigger than a star. It's really like the Death Star, but bigger. And you would build it around the star, and you would seal the star inside this Dyson sphere. And you can harness the power of that star through this Dyson sphere. I think that's what they think is going to happen. They're going to be able to encircle a star in this Dyson sphere. And you're going to be able to somehow take the energy, unlimited energy that the star usually has, and transfer it from this Dyson sphere down to the Earth to power everything on Earth. Of course, if the lobbies let us do that. And also, by 2030, how the hell are we going to build something like that around a star when the nearest star to us, besides the sun, is Alpha Centauri, and it's light years away, and it's going to take millions of years to get there? So that's to be continued. I'm not exactly sure, but I just thought that was an interesting headline. Now, if they meant that the whole country, the whole world is going to be run by solar, that's a different story. That would be pretty awesome, actually, to be honest. Finally, on my final news stuff, and then I got a couple of big stuff, and we'll get out here probably a little bit after 11 today. So it's a little bit shorter than usual. Carrie Russell, just off of the successful run of her TV show The Americans, is reteaming with her former producer J.J. Abrams, who produced and directed and wrote episodes of her TV and created her TV show Felicity, and then also brought her into Mission Impossible 3 as well, that he directed too. Well, it looks like that he's reaching out to his lucky star again. Now that she no longer has the Americans she has to deal with, that's done. They want to get her more into some more movies. J.J. Abrams is directing the next Star Wars movie, Star Wars 9, which comes out next year. Is currently filming right now. He has reached out to her to be in Star Wars, and she has accepted. So Carrie Russell will be in a starring role in the new Star Wars movie. Don't know who she's going to play or what she's going to play or whatever, but it's a new role. And it was created for her by her her friend and former producer, J.J. Abrams, who is directing this one. So good on them. We're going to talk a little bit about death now. First up, Duke, the Bush's Beans dog. If you've ever seen those commercials for Bush's Beans, it's a golden retriever that they computer animate its mouth talking, and then they have a voice coming out of it. He died. So rest in peace, Duke, the Bush's Beans dog. That leads us to Steve Ditko. Apparently, Steve Ditko died on June 29th, and we just found out about it yesterday. For those who don't know who Steve Ditko is, in the world of comic books, he is on par with a Stan Lee and a Jack Kirby. He was part of that group, Lee and Kirby, who helped put Marvel Comics on the map. He co-created and drew for the longest time my favorite comic book in the world, or my favorite comic book character, the comic book that got me started on my road to comics, The Amazing Spider-Man. He was on issues 1 through, I want to say, like 40. So he did the first 40 issues of Amazing Spider-Man before John Romita Sr. took over, and he did a really good job as well. And it was a different take on Spider-Man and maybe a bit more of a realistic look at it. But Steve Ditko always had a distinct art style, and he helped create a number of Spider-Man's most famous villains, and also helped create the Spider-Man iconic costume. He also went on to work on Doctor Strange. I think he co-created that as well. And that really brought him into light, because if you've seen these early Doctor Strange comics, there's lots of bizarre dimensions and worlds where these fights take place. And it is the definitive, to me, the definitive Doctor Strange is Steve Ditko's version of it. It's phenomenal and it's amazing, and I need to get some more of his stuff because I really, really like what I saw of it. Then after doing that for a while, he moved on to Charlton Comics and helped create Blue Beetle, Peacemaker, Nightshade. God, I can't think of some of the other characters. The Question, stuff like that. And then he went on to DC, where he did the Creeper. Might have created him, possibly. He worked on other characters. I can't think of what other DC characters he did. There were some that he did that they've been showing lots of pictures of that I can't think of the top of my head. And then I think he also helped create Squirrel Girl, which is my daughter's favorite superhero. There is the first issue of that Squirrel Girl ever appeared in, is in one of the trades that my daughter read, and it was drawn by Steve Ditko. So he helped create Squirrel Girl also. And he also came back out of retirement in the early 90s with Stan Lee, I think. I think Stan Lee wrote this also, to do Speedball, which is a character that they created who became a member of the Marvel Universe, part of the New Warriors, and then has popped around periodically. Hasn't shown up recently, but is still sort of hanging around out there. But he was all this was done by Steve Ditko. He had a very distinct style, and he sort of gets left behind because of the Lee Kirby stuff. But Ditko deserves to be in the pantheon of comic book gods as well. And he was 90 years old, and we say rest in peace, Steve. You were a wonderful artist and a wonderful creator. Wow, I'm moving right along. I just don't have really a lot to talk about today. Now we're going to do my last two new segments that my two segments that I've created, and we might actually end this before 11 o'clock. So, we got to do the holidays too. I forgot about that. So I'm actually doing 3 segments here then. So we've got my final 3, what am I going to call these segments? Now, This Week in Movies is something that I started a couple weeks ago. I follow this new thing on Facebook. I forget what it's called, but it says this week, on this day, this movie came out, and it releases the trailer, and you can take a look at it and you reminisce about it. And so I've decided that I'll do a list of them every week about what comics came out this week, or what movies came out this week. So all the movies I'm about to talk about now were released sometime between July 1st and July 7th of this week. We'll start at the top with 56 years ago. Oh, this isn't movies. Walmart opened, so I threw that in there because that's a big anniversary. So Walmart opened 56 years ago this week. So I talked a little bit about Walmart already. I'm not a big Walmart fan, but it does what it's supposed to. I get what I need to get there if I need to. And now they have these comics there now, and then they've got really cool stuff when it comes to groceries. I get a chance to try different things that I might like to try that my grocery store doesn't get. It's always fun to do that. The first movie, so I think I did them in the order that I don't have the exact dates that they came out on, but I start listing them the week before my show. So like tomorrow, I will start listing ones that came out on the 8th of July. These are all ones I said came out from July 1st to July 7th. So the first one, unless it came out probably around July 1st, July 2nd, was Big Trouble in Little China is 32 years old. Kurt Russell and John Carpenter in a comedy action thriller. One of the most unique films you've ever seen. It's a lot of fun, and it's a cult classic. So I definitely recommend you check that out. 22 years ago, A League of Their Own came out. This is a great movie. It's pretty much an all-female cast. Tom Hanks has a supporting role in it. John Lovitz has a supporting role in it. And there are a few other male characters. Bill Pullman has a supporting role in it as well. Gary Marshall. And I forget the guy who played the Jewish guy that was the commissioner. I forget what his name is. but the majority of the cast are female. Stars Madonna, Rosie O'Donnell, Téa Leoni, Gina Davis, and I forget who played her sister, Lori Petty, I think. And it's based on the true story of the All-American girls baseball team when the men were overseas during World War II to distract America from horrible war stories. They wanted to keep baseball going because baseball was starting to reach it was rising steadily in the zeitgeist as being a good sport to watch and entertaining an entertainment venue. So they decided to try women's teams. So they got the women who stayed behind, and we had scouts go and find the best ones. And they played their hearts out, and it became a big success. And this film follows them. It's a great story. It's also a story about sisters. And also it brought Tom Hanks back to prominence because despite what you think now, there was a period of time there after Big and before Philadelphia where Tom Hanks was not Tom Hanks. No one wanted to work with him. Every movie that he did during that frame tanked, which is a shame because Joe versus Volcano was during that period, and I love that movie. But it didn't do well, and Tom Hanks was on the verge of disappearing again and not coming back. But Penny Marshall had directed him in Big, directed this movie, and wanted him for the role of the manager who was drunk and surly and stuff like that. And Tom decided, why not? What do I got to lose? So, he's worked with Penny before. He liked the script. He liked the character of something different than he's used to doing. And he did it. And he got huge notice. Lots of people liked his portrayal. So then Jonathan Demme came in and said, hey, do you want to try this role for Philadelphia? And Tom said, sure. And he did Philadelphia, and the rest is history. He got the Oscar win for that. The next year he did Forrest Gump, got the Oscar win for that. And then before you knew it was Apollo 13 and all the other stuff that led to, Tom Hanks being Tom Hanks. So this movie basically, in my estimation, is what set him on that path. A film that deserves a lot more respect than I actually see around it. Inner Space is 31 years old today, directed by Joe Dante, starring Dennis Quaid, Martin Short, and Meg Ryan. Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid at this time were married, I believe. And Martin Short actually was known for his comedy, and this is more of a sci-fi comedy thriller type of thing. And you got to see a different side of Martin Short. And it was very entertaining. Takes the premise of science has created a way to shrink humans and put them in little boats so they can explore people's bodies and help fight disease and cancers and stuff like that. If they can get to the tumor or whatever directly through these little ships, they can affect it without having to use surgery, and it might be a better way of killing it than the way that they had been doing it. But of course, people want to use it for military ways, so they break into the facility to steal it, but the doctor gets away and injects it into the body of what's the guy who thinks he's sick all the time. He thinks he's sick all the time and he's going insane and stuff like that, Martin Short's character. And then he starts hearing Dennis Quaid's voice because he's able to connect with him, and Dennis Quaid discovers that he's been injected in somebody's body, and they've got to work together to try to figure out what's going on to get him out of there because he's running out of air. So it's a fun film, and it's great to see Martin Short doing something a little bit different, and he kills it in this. And Dennis Quaid, of course, is perfect, and Meg Ryan is very cute. 38 years ago this week, in my estimation, the funniest movie of all time, Airplane, came out. I will defend Airplane as the funniest movie of all time till the cows come home. Yes, there are lots of other. Blazing Saddles is another good one that's hilarious, and there's a whole ton of freaking hilarious movies, but Airplane consistently makes me laugh. And even today, 38 years ago, the jokes might be dated and stale like that, and I know all the jokes, but to this day, it still makes me laugh. every time. From scenes where Robert Stack, playing it completely straight, is fixing himself up in a mirror, and he walks through the mirror. It wasn't really looking in a mirror, he was looking in the doorway, and he walks through the doorway. Or again, with Robert Stack was like the MVP in this one. Or when Robert Stack is driving to the airport to help bring the airplane down, and he's driving with a guy in the car, and they're in like a rotoscope background, and they're talking, and you can see the car doing bumpy roads and swerving back and forth, and then he hits somebody in a bike, and the guy calls him an asshole and stuff like that. That's pretty funny too. And then when Robert Stack walks into the airport and beats up all the religious zealots who are trying to sell him on the religion, it is hilarious. But then you get Leslie Nielsen again playing it straight as Dr. Rumack on board this airplane that has been affected by food poisoning, and there's only one person who can land the plane, and it's a guy who is suffering from a drinking problem. For those who saw the movie, you know what that means, and has a spotty war record at that. Played by Robert Hayes, and his former girlfriend, fiance, Julie Haggerty, is the main stewardess on there. The two of them have been estranged, but they find their love again, and it's filled with a cast of Peter Graves is in it, and Lloyd Bridges, and Steven Stucker, and it was directed by Jim Abram and the Zucker brothers. It is still one of the funniest movies of all time, and I will laugh consistently. Robert Hayes doing Staying Alive in a seedy bar while two Girl Scouts are fighting each other is hilarious. And noticing the stunt double doing the flip for Robert Hayes, and actually seeing Robert Hayes in the background get ready to jump into the center green, which was an error, but they left it in anyway. It's just consistently funny across the board. I laugh till I cry every time I see that movie. Airplane is the funniest movie of all time, and it is 38 years old this week. Shut your mouth. It's talking about Shaft. He's a bad mother. Shut your mouth. Shaft is 47 years old. He's the oldest movie on this list. Shaft started the blaxploitation film series in the 70s. He was a badass mother. Shut your mouth. Who bedded women and beat up drug dealers and rapists and shot people, and was kind of a bad guy in his own right, did some shady stuff as well, but he was the hero in the end, and it was a huge deal. They made a sequel with Samuel L. Jackson that made it more contemporary in the 1990s, and they're doing a sequel to that where Samuel L. Jackson's son is now the new Shaft. I don't remember who plays him, but that's Samuel L. Jackson's in it as well. I didn't put this in here because it's kind of obvious. I'm trying to remember how many years would that be. It would be 22 years. 96, 2006, 2006. Yeah, 22 years ago. Independence Day, the movie, came out this week. And on top of that, 21 years ago, Men in Black came out. Both these movies cemented Will Smith as Mr. Summertime. Both films went on to gross huge, were the biggest hits of their respective years. Both films are good in their own right. Independence Day is a cheeky, apocalyptic, makes no sense ensemble cast with a lot of famous actors in it working together, and against a common bad guy, Bill Pullman, as mentioned it again, Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, just to name a few of the characters in it. And then Men in Black, to me, which came out 21 years ago, is almost like the perfect movie. Not that it's great, but it's a 90-minute film. It has a distinct beginning, middle, and end. It's funny. It's got sci-fi adventure in it. And it is a perfect summer film to just watch, sit back, and it's fast. It's a 90-minute roller coaster ride. It's a lot of fun, and it's just it made Will Smith the big star that he is. Adventures in Babysitting came out 31 years ago. That this week, another one of these fun, almost John Hughes-esque type of movies, but it isn't a John Hughes film. But Elizabeth Shue plays a woman who wants to go on this date, but she also has to babysit these three kids. One is a teenager who has a crush on her, his best friend who's kind of goofy, and the crazy younger daughter who is obsessed with Thor. I think Chris Columbus wrote and directed that. And it becomes a horrible night. There's a movie that Martin Scorsese made called After Hours, which stars Griffin Dunn, and it takes place where this guy goes on a date with a beautiful woman, and he has the worst night of his life because all this stuff happens to him. He gets mistaken for a criminal. He gets chased by gangs of people. He's trying to get robbed. I think his girlfriend is a murderer or kills somebody or something like that, and people think he did it, and he ends up being trapped in a statue. It's really a dark comedy, one of Scorsese's more funny, violent type of films. Not as violent as like a Goodfellas or a Casino, but it's got its violence in it. But it's more of a funny film. It's got Catherine O'Hara, Cheech and Chong are in it as well. And it's a pretty interesting film. So they took that premise of one bad night and Chris Columbus applied it to Adventures in Babysitting, where Elizabeth Shue's babysitter has one bad night, discovers her boyfriend cheats on her. There is a woman in the latest issue of Playboy, who's the main centerfold, who looks exactly like her. So whenever they see her, everybody thinks she's the Playboy model. Her best friend is running away but gets trapped at the bus stop, and so she has to go save her. The car that they're driving in has a shattered windshield, and the guy who has to repair it is a jerk to them, and they have dealings with drug dealers, and one of the kids on her watch gets shot. It's just one of these really dark type of comedies, but it's got sort of a John Hughes-esque feel to it, even though it wasn't done by him. Still a lot of fun and still worth checking out. Robert Zemeckis is a god. I've talked about him before, and I talked about how great this movie is. This is another fantastic movie that came out this year, 33 years ago, Back to the Future. It's celebrating its 33 years. 1985 it came out. I love that movie. I showed it to my daughter. She absolutely adores it as well. And there's not much more I can say about Back to the Future. Everybody knows how great it is. I've talked about it plenty of times, and it is one of the absolute best time travel movies of all time. Another one also came out this week, 27 years ago. Terminator 2 was groundbreaking by Jim Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Edward Furlong, and Robert Patrick are the main stars in that one. It's the sequel to Terminator. Terminator came out in 1984. Terminator 2 came out in 92. So it's been 12 years. 8 years since the last one came out. And for 1992, the special effects, particularly Robert Patrick's evil T-1000 metal Terminator, at the time in 92 were groundbreaking special effects, and that's what raised it to one of the highest grossing films of the summer, along with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was hugely hot in the early 90s as well. And in itself is a really good time travel-esque movie. Whereas, Terminator, the original Terminator, was more of a time travel-y type movie. This was more of an action film, non-stop pretty much from beginning to end. Just a great, great type of movie. I talked about how great Robert Zemeckis is. I talked about Tom Hanks, and I mentioned this movie already once, but we're going to mention it again because it came out 24 years ago this week. Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump. Again, for 1994, one of the most groundbreaking, effects-laden movies of all time. Tom Hanks, his third straight, if you count League of Their Own, third straight hit. His second ends up getting nominated and winning his second straight Academy Award. He won the year previous for Philadelphia, so he's one of the only actors. There's like 3 or 4 others that have won back-to-back years as Best Actor. Tom Hanks is one of those guys, and it's because of this role. Now, what pisses me off about this is it came out the same year as Pulp Fiction, and everyone knows my distaste for Pulp Fiction. I like it, but I think it's hugely overrated. And all the Pulp Fiction fans are screaming that Forrest Gump should never have won the Oscar. And all I have to say is, do you know who votes for the Oscars? And a typical film, a journey through American history through the eyes of a special person by the name of Forrest Gump, using state-of-the-art computer animation and telling a very poignant and exciting story with a great Alan Silvestri score, is going to not win over a slam bang N-word saying, F-word saying gangster flick that's done out of order. It's overrated. I'm sorry. I think Pulp Fiction is overrated. That's my unpopular opinion. People will come at me and say you're a freaking moron. I liked Forrest Gump way better than I did Pulp Fiction. And the fact that Zemeckis was able to integrate Tom Hanks's Forrest Gump character into actual footage that was filmed, like you see Forrest Gump meeting President Kennedy and President Johnson and President Nixon, and you have him, you know, involved in the segregation of a college, and you have him involved in a high school, in a college football team, and you have him in China doing ping pong, and you have him integrated into these actual, you know, in an interview with John Lennon, you know, stuff like that. Great cast, you know, Forrest Gump, Robin Wright, Gary Sinise, Sally Field, just an amazing cast, and just a great film in general. And the last one that came out 18 years ago was going from really, really good movies to really, really dumb movie. Scary Movie came out 18 years ago. It was a parody film of the Scream movies. Starred a young Anna Faris, who I've talked about on my show before. I knew her brother, Robert. We went to elementary school together before they moved away. And to verify that wasn't just made up, I read Anna Faris's autobiography, and she mentions living in Baltimore. So don't have much more to say about that. So there's that. Finally, I have two more segments. I have Check Eye Day, and I got my new segment, In Dreams. I will do Check Eye Day first, and then I will do my last segment, In Dreams, and I'm going to go upstairs. For those who know me, you know that I love holidays. Holidays are my absolute favorite. And every day is a holiday, literally. And there is a website called Check Eye Day, and also they're on Twitter, which details all of the holidays for the specific day. They might not all be like 4th of July or Christmas or stuff like that, but there are some really interesting ones. So I'll go over a few from today, yesterday, and so on and so forth. July 7th is Tell the Truth Day, National Strawberry Sundae Day, National Macaroni Day, National Dive Bar Day, International Day of Cooperatives, International Cherry Pit Spitting Day, Hop a Park Day, Global Forgiveness Day, Father-Daughter Take a Walk Together Day, Chocolate Day. Today was Chocolate Day. Yesterday, July 6th, was Comic Sans Day, which is a type of font, International Kissing Day, National Air Traffic Control Day, National Fried Chicken Day, Take Your Webmaster to Lunch Day, Umbrella Cover Day. July 5th was Bikini Day, National Apple Turnover Day, National Graham Cracker Day, National Workaholics Day. Real quick, July 4th was Alice in Wonderland Day, Independence Day, Independence from Meat Day, Invisible Day, National Barbecue Day, National Barbecue Spare Ribs Day, National Caesar Salad Day, National Country Music Day, Sidewalk Egg Frying Day. July 3rd was American Redneck Day, Civil Disobedience Day, National Chocolate Wafer Day, National Compliment Your Mirror Day, National Eat Beans Day, Stay Out of the Sun Day, and that's it. And then tomorrow, July 8th, you can celebrate, where are you? Video Game Day, Scud Day, National Milk Chocolate with Almonds Day, National Ice Cream Sundae Day, Math 2.0 Day, Be a Kid Again Day, and Barn Day. So that is Check Eye Day. Those are the holidays for this week. So hurrah on that. And go ahead and celebrate those any way you can. Finally, we're going to talk about a new segment on the show, which again might not show up every time. It depends on if I can remember these. I sometimes have a good knack of remembering my dreams. In this case, I had 3 doozies. First one, this was earlier in the week. Dawn was married to Zach Bagans of Ghost Adventures fame and me, and we were doing something. I can't remember what it was. I remembered it earlier in the week when I told Dawn about it, and she found it weird. But again, I can figure out where that came from. My friend Becky had watched the Ghost Adventures on that Saturday, and she was just talking about it all day on Monday. And so that night, that being played out in my head, that came into play a little bit. I think this is Tuesday into Wednesday, I think was this. Someone I went to high school with by the name of Sonia, I'm not going to give her last name to protect her. I dreamt that she wanted a group of us to meet at an old person's home to talk about our high school reunion. And at the same time, I was also asked to become a manager at my local comic book store. Now, I knew it was my local comic book store because the guys who worked there, I saw them. They were the ones asking me about it. Now, the difference is my local comic book store is in a former movie theater up at the top of my neighborhood. This is kind of interesting. I've created locations that I've used multiple times in dreams. And I remember this was like an open-aired mall with a spiral staircase, and this comic book store is at the end near one of the spiral staircase areas. I also remember that my dad was lost or something like that, so and couldn't find me. So there, I had that. So maybe that had something to do with me catching up with my dad on maybe it was Wednesday into Thursday, because I would have gone to the comic book store, and I don't know where Sonia came from in high school reunions and old folks homes, but that was in there. Old folks homes might come from my cousin John because he works in old folks, so that's probably what it was. I don't know where Sonia came from. That was just pulled out of thin air, I think. And then I saw my dad, so I think that's what it was. The dream I had last night into today was I was doing Pokemon Go in an underground techno club, dark, and it looked like an old theater with a stage and chairs, but it was dark and it was underground. It was like a techno club, and Seth Rogen was there extolling the virtues of chocolate milk, while Paul Rudd's chocolate milk, who was sitting next to Seth Rogen, kept refilling and disappearing, refilling and disappearing. I guess that had something to do a little bit with Paul Rudd's take on Ant-Man, the Pokemon Go stuff coming up for this week, and stuff like that. So on that note, I think that's all I got for you this week. Enjoy the rest of this week, and we'll catch up again next week. Hopefully, maybe by next week, I'll be able to have some sort of review of Ant-Man and the Wasp. I really want to see it. Maybe I'll get MJ involved with this. So until then, have a great rest of your week. If you're a Pokemon Go fan, tomorrow's Community Day. Go on out there. If you're not, join Pokemon Go. Tomorrow will be the best time to it, and you go out and you go hunt, and you'll level up in no time. All right, guys, take care. Bye.